Okay, so do you think that our culture and our politics work hand in hand? By culture, I mean our traditional values, our historical cultural values that go across ethnic groups and, perhaps even beyond the borders of the modern nation state of Ghana. Do you think that culture is a living thing, it's a dynamic thing, or do you think that culture is like a museum relic? It's static, it is there, it is a fundamental principle that is indivisible, that neither grows nor bends nor changes. What is your understanding of culture, and how do you relate that to our modern day political situation, the constitution, human rights, development, enabling people to prosper, looking at abilities and disabilities, looking at beliefs? That's what I want to be asking of my colleague, and he is a guest as well this morning. His name is Nana Abriyeboah. He is a lecturer at Accra Poly, and if you wonder what he lectures his students in, it is research methodology and African studies. Spot on. Good morning and welcome to Sunrise, Nana. How are you doing?
I'm fine.
Very well, very well. Now, lots of viewers, are asking me where Moon is, and there's a debate. People are throwing out all kinds of suggestions. Someone said, they thought we'd quarreled, and that's why she's not coming. Someone actually posted today, was speculating as to whether Moon might be pregnant. Moon is on study leave. She's studying in Legon. If you think that she's pregnant, or if you think that she's angry with me, just take time out, go to Legon, ask around. I'm sure they'll tell you, Moon is there. She's studying international relations. She wants to take, she started her media career to an international level, become a diplomat, maybe working for Ghana at the level of the United Nations, or perhaps, even higher if such a thing exists. But coming straight back to the topic, how would you define culture, Nana?
Well, there are so many definitions of culture.
Culture?
Yes. It's very difficult to have just a single definition of
African
culture.
Studies, we think culture, drumming and dancing, chieftaincy institutions.
That is the mistake we do. Everywhere in the world, there's culture. The concept of culture is there.
So what is culture?
Well, I would like to emphasize on one or two. For me, culture is the shared values.
Shared values?
Shared values of a people or a community regarding their social, cultural, political, economic relationship. How do you relate socially? How do we relate politically? How do you relate economically?
You're saying that it's what we actually do?
Yes, the shared values. Because I don't think if I have to walk here naked, what would the public say? I would say, well, it's my right to walk naked. It's my right. I came to this world naked. I was not wearing any dress. But some people decide that, no, in this world, in this community, we wear dresses. And even the dress has values. The dress you wear, there are values. Every profession had values on what we call dress code and all that. So there are values regarding what the people have prescribed.
Is culture a living, changing thing, or is it static? Is it like set in stone, like the 10 Commandments, and you can't edit them really? You can only break them.
There's a core, and then the strands. There's a core, and then there are other peripherals that change. But pressed to the wall, you see the resistance, and that's why chieftaincy has been bombarded from colonialism till today, but still reacting. At times, you find people who are, in those days, those who are academic would not like to go into chieftains, those who are pastors. But today, we are getting professors who want to be chiefs, who want to be leaders of traditional communities. So it tells us the dynamism in that institution.
Okay. Bridging the gap between chieftaincy, which is our traditional institution, which is largely based on oral tradition, to our constitutional form of governance. Yes. Would you say that our constitution reflects and our traditional values, and also reflects the world in which we live, the wider society?
Well, you see, I said values, so we expect that any advancement will reflect the values of the people. Any deviant or non-conformity may lead to some conflict.
So what's the difference between...
So let's say the concept was social relation. Let's say one aspect of the culture definition I gave is social relationship. How do we relate? The Constitution says fundamental human rights. Who would not like to have life? So certain portions of the Constitution reflect the values of the people. But where there's non-conformity, you see the people reacting. And that's why we have problems with certain... And then we are defining tradition in terms of modernity. If you do that, you may have problems. Is it static? Is it dynamic? Is it reacting? It may react negatively. It may react positively.
Then traditionally we had chiefs.
Yes.
These days we have politicians. What's the difference between culture and politics, or the difference between a traditional leader, cultural leader, or a cultural icon, and a political leader, a political icon?
Well, before modern political system, we had the chiefs. They were our leaders, and from 1844, from Berlin Conference, the chiefs lost their status. And
I don't even think they were at the conference.
No, somebody sat somewhere in Germany and decided to take political authority from the chiefs, and from there they were sent to the background. They became spokespersons, agents of government. They lost their judicial whatever part. They are now more cosmetic in terms of leadership. The days they were army commanders is over. You cannot raise an army. You cannot you cannot send anybody to prison.
Differences.
No, nobody who respects a chief today, unless you wake up that institution to let people respect you.
So would you say that our culture influences our politics, or would you say that our modern day politics influences our culture?
Yeah, you see, my observation now. Every politician, when he gets the nod to become an MP, where does he run to? The chief's palace. Politicians, when they get the money, whom do they go first? They distribute television, cars, and all to chiefs, because that system is very solid. If you see one chief, you are talking to several people, and their leaders are represented in the decision. So the question is, why do you think modern politicians will not just go anywhere, but want to talk to chiefs? Because the system is so solid that it is more widespread, the structure is there. If you give a television to a chief, you are talking to 20,000 people. At times, the chiefs even influence the voting pattern.
But does it work the other way around too? Does politics, modern day political thinking, does it affect our culture?
Yes.
Our modern day culture.
Our modern day is importing certain values from the Western world because of globalization and all that. So it's affecting the way we think. We, not only politicians, but we have had human rights activists who want to bring in liberalism. You see, liberal mind. It's a philosophical thought that, well, you said you go this way, I go this way. We all have human rights. So we have rights for children, rights for women. I'm now waiting for men.
Men's rights and all this. All rights. I mean, human rights are human rights.
Human rights. So I don't see why they say women's rights, but we don't hear of men's rights. So everybody has a right. But there are certain rights that should be well explained to those in the traditional communities.
The framers of our constitution had traditional rulers and thinkers and philosophers amongst them, right or wrong?
It's right.
So would it be fair to say that our constitution is sort of like a foundation or the pillars that on which our modern day culture is built and on which it evolves?
Well, I will agree with you.
Well, I'm looking here at this morning's edition of the Ghanaian Times, and the front page story is by Yao Che. He has a photograph of Nana Oyedele. She has denied advocating for the legalization of homosexuality in the country, but she says that everyone has the same human rights, regardless of your gender, your sexuality. I will protect gay, she says. And I think I agree with Nana Oyedele. I think that everyone in our society, regardless of who you are, by the Constitution, has the same rights.
Yeah. I think there was the way Nana Oyedele and others communicated, or whoever is communicating. You must reflect the values of them. Let them understand that. Yes, everybody has rights. I understand that you do not like homosexual practice. But then they are human beings. Anytime you offend the law, don't take don't take the law into your own hands and lynch them. They have the right to defend themselves.
Absolutely.
You see, so allow the due process of law. This is what I expect people to say. Let the people in clear terms, in simple terms. Those big English will not help. Yes, I agree with you. Homosexuality or is it sexualism or whatever, same-sex marriage is wrong. It's against our values. But then, if anybody offends the law, please don't lynch the person. Don't take the law into your own hands. It's a human right.
Come to court. Law.
But when you say that you support their sexual orientation, that is the problem. The sexual orientation means the practice.
But what takes precedence? Here we have Chapter 5 of the 1992 Constitution,
Okay.
And this is what Nana Oyelita calls. She says that everyone is entitled to the same human rights.
That's right.
Human dignity, privacy, equality, and non-discrimination on the basis of association, freedom of association, and no discrimination, either along religious lines, along social lines, along gender lines. Everyone in Ghana has the same rights.
Yes.
That is not to say that one supports or encourages a Muslim if you are a Catholic. It's just to say that we tolerate and respect everyone's rights to privacy, to dignity,
let the public get it right,
and to equality.
I'm not here to challenge Nanoye. You see, my being here is to say that they should communicate well. I started by saying politician leaders must espouse the values of the. You are a Catholic. If you are a Catholic, what do the Catholics say about same-sex relationship? What do traditional communities say? What do Muslims say? We want that thing manifested. Anybody leading me, okay? And if you have any input, say that yes, I agree with you, but then when it comes to offending the law, allow such people who have offended your values to have the right to be heard in a court of law, a competent court. We should not take the law in our own hands and say, please, kill him. We don't want to do that. Everybody has a right to life. So allow the person, like the armed robbers, have human rights.
We have certain cultural practices, though, that everyone agrees are detrimental to the development of both the individual and society. For example, female genital mutilation. It also has sexual and psychosexual background to it, a major aspect. That's what it largely is, psychosexual, social, political. We also agree that, for example, some widowhood rights are really not something that we should embrace or continue, even though they are a cultural practice.
Yeah, when about if some people should rise up and say, we have the right to mutilate our sexual organs, what would we do? Where will we go? We see the traditional people and other religious people are looking at the function of society. Let's say same-sex relation. What would that lead to? Would that bring any good thing to all of us? I think I've terminated. My students laugh all the time. It's waste of resources. By going the other way, you will say marriage. Let's see there. What is marriage? A sexual relationship among people who are socially recognized to be wife and husband. And what do?
Well, I would argue that the sexual identity of any individual has not demonstrably led to a loss of public resources.
It's waste of resources. The society.
Politicians waste resources.
Please let me finish. The word resources I'm using is in quote. What if all of us today turn out to be same-sex people, marriage? Where would the next baby come from to represent you when you are off? Society must be replenished.
Scientists tell us that our sexuality is formed and molded by society, our closest social members, our family and our friends, between the ages of 0 conception and the age of 3. So an individual, if you agree with that partially or wholly, cannot be held accountable for how they've been molded. So then to know that and then go ahead and discriminate against whatever we've created by default, knowingly or unknowingly, seems to be very unfair to me.
Nobody was born with society in mind. We are born into society. I told you if I should come here with no dress, what would be your reaction? I'll tell you I have the right. I remember in Switzerland, there was this change in weather, and the young boys wanted to ride nude. They were arrested by the police. But the argument was that they have the right to nakedness. I'm sure the psychiatrists will say bring them to asylum. You see, society must be replenished. So society has molded you to take part in that rhythm, that dynamism of society. So what will same-sex marriage bring? That
but no one,
self-gratification.
No one, I'm sure you would agree with me, should discriminate against you if you choose to walk around without clothes in the privacy of your home. If what you do in terms of your personal identity or your personal activities, your personal life, does not in any way confront or aggravate or offend anyone else, and this is your private life. At home you choose to walk around naked, completely, totally
everybody, the very day you were born, you are a private person, but then you are relating. In fact, if you listen to the first definition I gave, values, shared values. So if you are not sharing that value, then you don't belong to us. You are an individual.
So would you say that, for example, the minister Nana Uelitha, will be affected by cultural perceptions, perhaps, that people might have, and that this, would affect her image. In other words, also affect her political career, because in politics sometimes we say, or very often, perception is reality.
Well, if she takes my communication, she should see me and then communicate well. You see, she has not said she's a gay. She has not said so. She has been given a position to protect everybody, irrespective of where you belong to. Okay? So if you are discriminated against, she will say that, please stop the discrimination. Go to court. If somebody has offended you, like an armed robber, there are some human rights people who defend armed robbers, cocaine dealers, isn't it? They have the right to be heard. I think that is what my sister, she's somebody I like so much.
Constitution, in other words, not by religious beliefs,
just say that
by
everybody,
traditional edicts.
if you are accused of being a gay, please, those accusers must allow this person to defend herself or himself. This is the best way. It's simple, but this way of using certain jargons and all, the communication is what is giving her the problem. See, somebody I know very well. I don't think, please. I know it's a very, very touchy and sensitive subject. I'm not looking at her personally. I'm looking at her position. The position that she should protect everybody. So you may be in the minority. So minorities must be protected. Vulnerables must be protected. You don't have to lynch anybody. We have the right to life. So if I've offended you, go and accuse me in a competent court of jurisdiction. You see, that's what I think she must do, and not the way the media has misconstrued her position. I'm not against her position at all, but then I expect leaders to espouse their values.
And live up to the pledge to protect the Constitution, and everyone that's covered by it. Well, Mrs. Letha said that her commitment is to fight against injustice, protect all human rights, and that includes the rights of homosexuals. She also said that we have other issues in our society, such as witch camps, we have female genital mutilation, we have the way Kayaye or migrant female workers are treated or neglected by our system, and so on and so forth. So I think that...
let me add, she's not only going to protect the vulnerables, the majority too.
Indeed.
If I'm in the house and somebody is a homosexual, want to marry my son, these young boys who go out, at times when you see people riding motorbikes with young boys behind the motorbikes, where are they taking them to? It's a contagious disease. For me, this same-sex thing is contagious, can affect anybody, any family. So the protection of the majority is also important. Majority can be vulnerable too, you see. So it's not only minorities or other marginalized people who must be put, all of us. That's why he says everybody. Everybody. So everybody, if you offend the law, come to court. That's what the constitution, rule of law. That's, you are not guilty until you have been proven guilty. So that's how she must communicate.
I still wonder why we are much more tolerant of child abusers. I mean, someone sexually abuses, rapes an infant or a real minor. I mean, age, single-digit ages, and we seem to, be much more tolerant of that than in what adults engage in when it comes to their sexuality. But we're running out of time, and I want us to move on from what we think and how we behave, what we do, to how we actually are in terms of our physical abilities. And on page 7 of today's edition of the Ghanaian Observer, there is a story. Pardon me, let me just get this paper. Let me get this paper sorted out. It's it doesn't have an author to it, and it's in the news section. It's page 7. It says the Ghanaian Federation of the Disabled has cautioned President John Dramani Mahama not to bow to pressure from some chiefs in replacing the minister designate for chieftaincy and traditional affairs. Dr. Henry Seydou Dana will be the first physically challenged minister when given the nod by the Appointments Committee. Here it is. And I think the reason for this, once again, is certain traditional or old beliefs. For example, that a leader or a chief should conform to certain physical characteristics or levels of physical fitness in terms of physical functionality, sight, hearing, and so on. In fact, chiefs are, if I understand correctly, are very carefully examined physically.
Yes. You don't have to grow beard so that we know you are Donata. The next day you have no beard. The next day you have beard. Then you have bushy hair. So you see the chiefs, everybody cropping down and making sure that we know that this person is our leader.
So what do you make of this?
This
some traditional thinkers calling for
a political appointment by a president.
But once again, here, politics and culture, traditional culture and modern day politics seem to be clashing.
Who were the stool? What stool is he going to sit on?